Are you tired of modern SUVs, fragile plastic bumpers, cracking touchscreens, sensors that fail if they get damp? If you grew up in the 70s or 80s, you remember real 4x4 trucks rusting proudly in a neighbor's driveway, machines built on raw torque, heavy locking differentials, and driver skill alone. Today, we're counting down the 10 most legendary Outlaw 4x4 beasts ever built, from nimble giant killers to massive battlefield leviathans. Stay until the end. Our number one is a 1948 behemoth that looks like it escaped a war zone. Hit subscribe now. Kicking off our list at number 10 is a machine that proves you do not need massive horsepower to dominate the trails. The 1984 Suzuki Samurai SJ413. Hailing from Japan, this compact warrior was introduced to the American market as a lightweight, bare-bones off-roader. Under the hood, it featured a tiny 1.3-liter four-cylinder engine. Producing a meager 63 horsepower, it was mated to a robust 5-speed manual transmission. While American drivers obsessed over massive engines, this lightweight legend took a completely different approach. The design of the Samurai was the absolute epitome of mechanical transparency. There were no luxury interior panels, no traction control systems, and absolutely no sound deadening to hide the whine of the gears. It was a boxy, steel-bodied mountain goat with leaf springs on all four corners. When heavy American V8 trucks would sink frame-deep into thick mud bogs, the featherweight Suzuki Samurai would shine. Weighing barely over 2,000 pounds, it would literally skip right across the surface, easily earning its reputation as a giant killer on the dirt. Of course, the Samurai was not without its flaws. Its incredibly short wheelbase and stiff suspension made highway driving at 65 miles per hour feel like you were riding a mechanical bull. But in the tight, heavily wooded trails, it was an unstoppable force of nature, cementing its legacy as an outlaw legend. Its pure simplicity meant that trail repairs required only a basic wrench. While the Samurai proved less is more, our next classic proves early sport utility vehicles are now worth gold. Coming in at number 9 is the vehicle that arguably defined the modern sport utility market, long before the term existed, the 1961 International Harvester Scout. Built in Fort Wayne, Indiana, the Scout 80 was a direct answer to post-war civilian off-roaders, originally designed as a rugged agricultural workhorse. The first Scouts were powered by a 152 cubic-inch inline-four engine. Pumping out around 93 horsepower, the Scout was built with the exact same industrial DNA as the brand's legendary commercial farming equipment. Visually, the Scout was a utilitarian masterpiece of flat steel panels, featuring a fold-down windshield and a removable hardtop that transformed it into an open-air trail basher. Today, the collector's market for these early Scouts has absolutely skyrocketed. If you find a beautifully restored International Scout sitting at a high-end auction block, it is not uncommon to see the gavel drop at well over $100,000. They are highly sought-after vintage treasures. Representing the absolute peak of mid-century American mechanical engineering and brute design. The Scout was utilized for everything, from rural postal delivery to extreme backcountry logging operations, proving its worth in unforgiving environments. However, because they were built by a tractor company, they rusted notoriously fast, if left unprotected in salty winter conditions, making surviving examples rare today. Despite this Achilles heel, the Scout firmly established the off-road trend for the American family. The Scout started the trend, but this next iconic American machine turned the 4x4 market into an absolute battlefield of horsepower and dirt. At number 8, we have the untamed wild horse of the American off-road scene, the 1966 Ford Bronco. Recognizing the massive success of the International Scout, Ford spearheaded the development of the Bronco to capture the adventurous public. At launch, the Bronco could be equipped with a spirited 170 cubic-inch inline-six, but the optional 289 cubic-inch V8 engine turned it into a powerhouse. It delivered incredible torque straight to the dirt on its unique, dedicated short wheelbase chassis. The aesthetic of the early Bronco is arguably one of the most recognizable and beloved profiles in automotive history. With its flat glass, simple round headlights, and aggressively cropped overhangs, it looked like a street-legal Baja racer straight from the factory. Similar to the Scout, the nostalgia surrounding the first-generation Bronco has pushed its auction value into the stratosphere. Custom restorations routinely sell for $250,000. It offered mechanical transparency at its finest, showing exactly how internal combustion was meant to sound. However, true gearheads know the original Bronco had a notorious Achilles heel. Its incredibly narrow track width and primitive front suspension setup made it highly susceptible to a terrifying death wobble at highway speeds over 60 miles per hour. It was a vehicle designed to conquer desert sand, not to cruise smoothly on modern interstates. Ford definitely had a massive hit on their hands with the Bronco, but Chevrolet was not about to sit back and watch. Enter the heavyweight V8 brawler. Roaring into the number 7 spot is General Motors' heavy-hitting response to the off-road craze, the 1969 Chevrolet K5 Blazer. While Ford built a dedicated small-scale platform, Chevrolet took a massive full-size pickup truck frame, chopped the wheelbase down, and threw a heavy fiberglass removable roof over the back. Buyers could equip the Blazer with a monstrous 350 cubic inch small block V8 engine, churning out over 250 horsepower. This beast brought brutal, uncompromising muscle car power directly to muddy trails. The K5 Blazer perfectly illustrates the conflict between American automotive philosophy and the rest of the world. While foreign manufacturers built nimble, low-horsepower vehicles, Chevy's philosophy was simple: if you get stuck, just use massive horsepower to spin the mud right off the tires. The Blazer's wide stance and full-size solid axles made it incredibly stable on uneven terrain. Hearing the deep, aggressive roar of a carbureted Chevy V8 echoing through a dense forest is an experience modern electric vehicles will never replicate. The K5 Blazer became the ultimate symbol of American outdoor recreation in the 1970s, frequently used as the platform of choice for extreme mud boggers. Its sheer size made it a bit clumsy on tight, narrow mountain passes. But when the trail opened up, the Blazer was the undisputed king of brute force. Its awful fuel economy was a small price to pay for that incredible sound. American V8s were all about brute force, but the British were busy putting a tuxedo on a tractor. Taking the number 6 spot is a machine that completely revolutionized the concept of going off-road, the 1970 Range Rover Classic. Before this vehicle existed, 4x4s were strictly considered uncomfortable, noisy farm implements. The British engineers at Rover wanted a vehicle that could comfortably cruise motorways at 80 miles per hour, yet still cross the grueling African savanna. Powered by a legendary all-aluminum 3.5-liter Rover V8 engine, it delivered smooth torque through a highly advanced, quirky full-time four-wheel drive system with a lockable center differential. Visually, the Range Rover Classic was an absolute masterpiece of industrial design, featuring a clamshell hood, a split tailgate, and elegant floating roof pillars. It was the first vehicle to successfully blend high-end luxury with serious off-road capability. The cabin featured heavily padded seats and advanced sound deadening, insulating the driver from the harsh metallic clanking of the drivetrain. However, this mechanical complexity was a massive double-edged sword. The electrical systems, famously manufactured by Lucas Industries, were notoriously unreliable and constantly failed under stress. Despite its electrical gremlins, the Range Rover Classic was used for everything, from royal hunting expeditions to winning the grueling Paris-Dakar rally. It proved that you did not have to suffer a broken back to conquer the wilderness, wrapping military-grade capability in a highly refined, aristocratic package. It set the standard for every luxury sport utility vehicle that followed it into the dirt. The British brought luxury to the trail, but the Japanese took a completely different path: unbreakable, brutal, heavy steel simplicity. Crashing into the number 5 spot is the undisputed heavy anvil of the off-road world, the 1960 Toyota Land Cruiser 40 Series. If the Range Rover was a delicate scalpel, the FJ40 was a heavy, indestructible sledgehammer. Developed by Toyota to compete directly with military vehicles, the J40 series was powered by the legendary F engine, a massive 3.9-liter inline-six. Producing massive low-end torque, this heavy engine was mated to a transmission that could drag the heavy steel vehicle up almost any incline. The design of the FJ40 is iconic, featuring a flat front grille, close-set headlights, and a stamped steel body that was thicker and heavier than almost anything else on the market. Toyota's engineering philosophy was based on heavy-duty overbuilding. The heavy solid axles, the transfer case, and the frame were massively over-engineered to withstand decades of abuse in the harshest environments on Earth. It was completely devoid of modern comforts. It was a pure, unadulterated steel tool designed specifically to outlast its human owner. However, its greatest strength was also its biggest Achilles heel. The heavy-duty leaf spring suspension was so incredibly stiff that driving it on a paved road without a massive payload could literally rattle your teeth loose and cause serious back pain. Yet this uncompromising stiffness is exactly why the FJ40 is universally revered today as a monument of mechanical transparency. The Land Cruiser is a legendary survivor, but our next historic machine literally helped the entire free world survive the darkest days of the 1940s. Securing the number 4 position is the iconic hero that started it all, the 1941 Willys Jeep MB, alongside its identical twin, the Ford GPW. Born out of absolute necessity during World War II, the United States military needed a lightweight four-wheel drive reconnaissance vehicle to replace the horse. The resulting machine was a masterclass in battlefield engineering. Powered by the legendary Go Devil 134 cubic inch inline-4 engine, it produced 60 horsepower. Weighing just over 2,000 pounds, it conquered deep European trenches with absolute ease. The design of the Willys Jeep was entirely dictated by function over form. It featured a flat-slotted grille, no heavy doors, and a quirky genius feature, a fold-down windshield. This allowed soldiers to reduce the vehicle's profile to avoid enemy fire and prevented glass from reflecting sunlight up to enemy aircraft. The Jeep was specifically designed to be repaired right in the middle of a heavy firefight, with the most basic tools imaginable. You just needed a wrench, some wire, and raw mechanical intuition. General Dwight Eisenhower famously stated that America could not have won the war without the Jeep. Ford's massive manufacturing capability was instrumental in churning out hundreds of thousands of these beasts. After the war, surplus Jeeps were brought home by returning soldiers, instantly sparking the recreational off-roading movement in America and inspiring every 4x4 that followed. The Jeep conquered the global battlefield, but when the dust finally settled, a British farmer built a true off-road legend out of leftover surplus airplane parts. Claiming the number 3 spot is the ultimate post-war workhorse, the 1948 Land Rover Series 1. In the chaotic aftermath of World War II, the British Rover Company desperately needed a vehicle that could be exported to bring in cash, as heavy steel materials were strictly rationed. Inspired by an old Willys Jeep, chief designer Maurice Wilkes sketched the shape of the first Land Rover in the sand. Because steel was scarce, engineers made a brilliant pivot, building the entire body out of surplus aircraft-grade aluminum alloy. Powered by a small 1.6-liter engine, it utilized a permanent four-wheel drive system with a freewheeling unit, giving it remarkable traction on slippery farm terrain. The aesthetic was wonderfully crude and distinctly agricultural. It was a boxy, rivet-covered machine painted in light green, which was the only paint color available because it was surplus cockpit paint from military bombers. The aluminum body meant the vehicle would never rust, though its heavy steel chassis certainly could, presenting a major issue for long-term survival in damp climates. It was designed primarily as a mobile power source for farmers. You could literally hook up heavy plows, threshers, and even circular saws to its mechanical power takeoff system. The Series 1 wasn't just a truck, it was a lifeline for remote communities and an unstoppable exploration vehicle that mapped some of the most uncharted territories on the globe. The Series 1 was a hardworking farmer's best friend, but back in the States, Dodge was unleashing a civilian tank that absolutely terrified the pavement. Dominating the number 2 spot is an absolute monster of American industrial might, the 1946 Dodge Power Wagon. When World War II ended, Dodge took their battle-proven heavy military truck chassis and slapped a civilian cab on it, creating the very first mass-produced 4x4 medium-duty truck for the public. Under the massive, swelling hood sat a nearly indestructible 230 cubic inch flathead inline-6 engine. It wasn't built for fast horsepower, it was built for pure earth-moving torque to RIP stumps out of the ground. Visually, the Power Wagon is utterly intimidating. It features a towering stance, massively flared fenders, and a heavy steel winch mounted aggressively on the front bumper. Driving one feels less like operating a truck and much more like commanding a piece of heavy artillery. It is the ultimate expression of mechanical transparency. Shifting the heavy, unsynchronized gears requires double clutching, muscle, and perfect timing, rewarding the skilled driver with a highly satisfying, heavy metallic crunch as the 4-speed manual transmission engages the heavy steel gears. However, its massive mechanical capability came with a severe Achilles heel. Its incredibly low axle gearing meant the top speed was an agonizingly slow 45 miles per hour, making the engine scream in sheer agony on a modern highway. Despite its slow speed, the Power Wagon became the ultimate vehicle for firefighters, forestry services, and heavy construction crews carving out American infrastructure. The Power Wagon is an absolute monster, but it looks like a toy compared to our number 1 spot, which does not even look like a truck anymore. Finally, at the number 1 spot, the ultimate climax of outlaw off-road engineering, the 1948 Mercedes-Benz Unimog. Emerging from the heavy ruins of post-war Germany, the Unimog, short for Universal Motor Machine, was conceived as a vehicle to save German agriculture. It is an engineering marvel that defies basic classification, powered by a highly durable diesel engine. Its true genius lies in the heavy drivetrain. It features a complex transmission with over 20 forward gears, allowing it to crawl at speeds much slower than a human walking. The visual presence of a Unimog is truly alien. It rides incredibly high off the ground, thanks to its most famous quirky feature, heavy-duty portal axles. Unlike standard trucks where the axle tube is aligned with the center of the wheel, portal axles use heavy gearboxes at the wheel hubs to raise the entire axle tube high above the center line. This gives the Unimog an absurd amount of ground clearance, allowing it to drive completely over massive boulders and deep trenches that would completely destroy a Power Wagon. Furthermore, it featured mechanical power takeoff shafts at the front, rear, and even the sides, meaning this single vehicle could run a heavy water pump, spin a massive sawmill, and harvest crops all at the exact same time. The Unimog is not just a truck, it is a rolling industrial factory. Over the decades, it has been heavily used by the military and extreme rescue squads in the most hostile environments. It represents the absolute pinnacle of uncompromising, extreme mechanical engineering, earning its rightful place as the greatest beast ever. Now, I want to hear from you down in the comments section. Which of these classic off-road beasts did you find the strangest? Has anyone here ever wrenched on an old 3-speed manual transmission out in the muddy field? I really want to read your personal stories. And is there a legendary off-road outlaw that I completely missed? Let me know. Every week there is a new video diving deep into the powerful machines that built our world. So do not forget to like, subscribe, and hit the bell icon. See you in the dirt next time.